somebody just touch on that? The one in particular where applicants was basically given a license without having completed the requirements. The board chair conflicts of interest as far as voting on an item that was had a personal interest in it, and the continuation of emergency contracts. So if somebody could just touch on those, please.
Sure, I'll take the administrator issuing the license. Generally speaking, that's how boards generally operate. Is there's a checklist, and if you've got a checklist certain of boxes that can just be checked off and there's not any questions, then they will generally issue a license, and then at the next board meeting you'll see a list of licensees, and those licensees will be approved.
But again, that is not what the state code says right now, correct? That's in contradiction of SB 192, is that correct?
It's my recollection, and I don't have it in front of me, that it does not preclude the director from issuing the license. There was language that was inserted in the statute, my recollection.
Can I ask the examiner's opinion on that? Can I ask your opinion on that? So, okay, please go ahead.
So I listened to Mr. Bledsoe's comments, and I couldn't disagree with him more for the simple fact that this board was enacted back in 1996. And the legislature is never deemed, I can pull up 100 Supreme Court cases right now in Alabama, the legislature is never deemed to act in vain. Okay? And so the legislature came numerous times since 1996, in 2000 and 2007 and 2011, and it didn't give them that power. These boards, these commissions are a creature of the legislature. If you don't have the power, you can't act. Regardless of whether it would be nice to, you have to have the authority. And so the legislature gave them that authority. In Act 2022-408, they specifically granted the executive director the authority to grant a license. The very next year, the legislature came back. Again, they're never deemed to act in vain, and they struck through. All of the members on the Sunset Committee are intimately familiar with when you strike through language in an act, you intend them to no longer have that power, and that's exactly what happened in 2023-490. If you pull up that bill on Allison, it's stricken through. And so I don't understand how logically, from a legal perspective, from a logical sense perspective, and this legislature struck that authority, that ability, how you could argue or whether there would be a need to ask for an AG's opinion about whether or not the executive director still has that authority.
Excuse me, let me
Straightforward.
just put a pin right there. You asked the Attorney General's opinion, but the person standing before us is with the AG's office. Am I missing something?
I think he's maybe with it, and see if this is correct. Is he with the AG's office, but just not acting in that capacity on this board? I'm confused with that.
Yes, I'm at the Attorney General's office, but I'm in the Civil and Administrative Law Division. So we have a separate division that does opinions, and then we've got
Okay.
criminal divisions, we got criminal appeal divisions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming and explaining that for me. I appreciate it. Mr. Bledsoe, I'm going to say one thing as far as emails and that you didn't know about Lieutenant Beam's information. I've got 4 emails in front of me.
Hold on. They haven't finished addressing my issues.
Yeah, let's stay with Senator Coleman Madison.
Please forgive me. I'm sorry about that, Senator.
Okay.
So the other concerns regarding the conflict of interest, I think, is another bone of contention. And so what we did with that matter was there was a complaint filed. The complaints, of course, are investigated. We have an investigative committee. They are all identified by a complaint number from the very beginning. So when this matter, after it was investigated and the investigative committee was presenting their recommendation to the board, we do not identify anyone at all with the complaints. In the process of presenting the investigative committee recommendations, for this particular case, the vice chair, who also is the chair of the IC committee, was the one that handled the vote, the presentation and the vote on the complaint, and then the chair. What we did not do was specifically state that the chair abstained from the vote. We have a policy through the Robert's Rules of Order that the chair only votes in the matter of a tie. So that is our fault for not specifically stating that the chair did not vote on that matter. But the chair did not have anything to do with the vote and presentation of that case to the board. Yes, ma'am.
What was next on your list, Senator Coleman Madison? I think you had another issue.
Issuing licenses to people who had not met requirements.
So we have not done that. So in fact, I'm going to jump back over here to Senator Gudger's issue because we pulled all the background checks for those individuals and none of those active warrants even show up on their background check. So if their background check is clear and they've met all the requirements, then there's nothing for us to go on to deny that license. And so moving forward, all of those applications now will be presented to the board, and we will pull our application review proposal. So every one of those applications will now be reviewed by the board at their quarterly meetings. So they can see all of the requirements that have been met. So they've met the educational requirement, the examination requirement, the insurance requirement, and the background history check. So all of those will now go before the board. So those that did have criminal history, those are the ones that would go to the board for review. But we'll stop all that, and all applications now will go before the board for them to review individually. But I might add, if the criminal history background check is clear, then there's nothing for the board to hold them back on denying that license.
Unless there's a complaint filed by anyone in the general public, a licensee, or somebody on your board that you know of, then you would inspect that, correct, and probably suspend that license until you had a hearing.
Our investigators have been working with the Coleman Police Department as well as inspecting that facility anytime they're in the area. So that's what we're doing in that matter.
Okay, and the last thing is someone just, and Keith, we've had this before, you're familiar with it. This is and it may be this is a continuing emergency contracts, and maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know. I'm just wondering. It's not an emergency if it's continuing.
Correct. That is not something that I like either, actually, as a business person. So, proposals for these contracts were not bid, and that dates back to probably around 2020. The prior, when it was the purchasing division, that director is the one that initiated the initial emergency contracts for the services to continue. Those have been extended through the law being changed by you in October, effective October the 1st. The procedures for the request for proposals for these services were issued along with the instructions in March, and all of these proposals are either finalized and contracts going to contract review, or they're in the proposal process now. So those will go away after we conduct all of these final requests for proposals that just started in March of 2023.
Senator Coleman Madison, you have any other questions? Representative Simpson?
Here's my concern, and I'm piggybacking on Senator Gudger on this issue, because I've had the opportunity to speak to Lieutenant Beams as well. There is a general feeling of hopelessness by board members that they can't do anything that they're supposed to do. They're afraid their name is going to get dragged through the mud just by being on the board. And when they try to do things to correct it, when they try to do things, they run into a stone wall. It's not just the board members, and you look at the questionnaires that came through, you see these responses from the board. It's the massage therapists themselves. There is a lack of confidence in this board. There is a lack of confidence in the way this is being handled and what is being done, and we can find every possible, thing to run around in circles about solutions, but when people are actually trying to correct it and trying to make a difference and trying to make sure that places like Senator Gudger's district is safe, they're running into roadblocks coming from the board. And that's just unacceptable.
It is unacceptable, and we do have circumstances where the establishment closed and they send in other individuals that meet the licensing criteria and open right back up. We did have the opportunity to have added in the 2018 legislation that is, if a location by address is identified as an illicit massage business or a human trafficking business, then a business cannot reopen in that same facility. So that's hopefully where we're headed in this matter.
May I speak, Mr. Chairman, or somebody else? I think my biggest issue of that whole deal is that the person still has a license, number one, even though we can't find them. They should have been suspended by now. Through time, even if you had your hearing in 120 days, it's been, 750 days approximately now. Still hasn't had anything happen with that, and the establishment is still conducting business there. If there was a complaint, it says very, very clearly in the code and also in this book that is y'all's purpose is to keep public safety number one until you do have the opportunity to suspend or revoke in doing that. I know we talked about, y'all didn't know anything about the resignation of Lieutenant Beams, and I get 1,000 emails too, but both of you are copied on 4 emails that I've gotten from him on July 13th, 9:42, 9:43, 2:13, and 3:12 with the rest of the people that are on their staff, the investigators. So I'm going to give you benefit